one of the members of the public, the regulator station, we would not bring that in front of the board until we have secured a location, until we secured an easement. And so that's our normal process. That's what we do with every town, is that we would, once we secure an easement, then we would bring the matter before the board for site plan approval.
Thank you. We're,
Excuse me, the board members have another opportunity to...
not a need to. Oh, are you going to bring them back to the next meeting? So, is that what we're doing? I don't know. Well, let's figure out what the next meeting date is, but I had thought that. Yeah, we're going to talk about the special meeting next. But yeah. Is that Mr. Morelli has a question?
I did have another question, and I didn't know if you wanted to say it tonight.
Go ahead, I'm here. Go ahead. Is it Mr. Otto?
It's Mr. Otto.
Okay, Mr. Otto.
So I just had, I would like to, if you could clarify something for me, because in regards to, again, getting back to the fact that you excluded the farmland in your analysis, and getting back to what you testified to in regards to the farm that's across the street. I understand the concept, how to separate the value of the property value versus a business value. I understand that, and I think you're correct in stating that. But what I don't understand is where you testified that the business part of the, how do we separate this exactly? And what I'm concerned about is in the vineyard across the street, where it's not a conventional farm where you're growing vegetables and your crop is a seasonal crop where you grow something and you chop it up and you still have just bare dirt. We're talking about property that has invested a lot of money and time and into a vineyard, similar to even if it was a Christmas tree farm, where you have an asset incorporated into this land. I'm having a tough time understanding, how do we separate the value of that versus just an empty parcel of land, where I think that, I'm almost wishing that you did evaluate this now, because I am concerned in the future if they were to sell this property, how the next buyer would perceive this and how this might impact that sale, because it's not just it's not just a conventional farm. It's to me it's more unique, and it's you have invested interest and assets into this property.
Okay, so it's an excellent question, and I'm going to answer it in three parts. First, business valuation, business value, is determined by the same basic drivers as commercial property valuation. So commercial property value is determined by how much rental income you can generate. Now, it's more complicated than that, because there's other factors. There's vacancy, and there's the need for capital improvements and periodic maintenance and refurbishment. There is some seasonality that can be involved. There are operating costs, but the primary driver for the value of a shopping center or an office building is how much income can you generate.
Understood. I think you're almost proving my point.
Yeah, so I'm just going to work my way through it. And the same is true for businesses. When someone buys an office building or someone buys a business, what they're paying for is the income stream. And we look at things like capitalization rates or income to value multipliers to extrapolate that income into what the entity is worth. be it commercial real estate or a business. It's the same mechanism. It's income divided by a capitalization rate equals value. Having said that, any effect on a business nearby to the regulator station would be determined entirely by whether those business operations would be adversely affected. In other words, for this regulator station to have an adverse effect on business value, it would need to materially impair the ability of that business to function. If it doesn't, then what a buyer will pay for in the future will similarly be unaffected because buyers pay value based upon income. Finally, the third point, absent some environmental impact which would adversely affect this business to operate, there will be no adverse effect on income and therefore no adverse effect on value. We've heard extensive testimony here from an environmental expert who said everything about this is within the normal operating standards. And so it's a leap, it's a big leap, to think that absent environmental, the business income, absent our environmental impacts, the business will somehow be affected in terms of its ability to operate because across the street and diagonally across the road, hundreds of feet back, hidden behind a screen and a fence and landscaping, somehow there is this lurking menace. It's an unreasonable concern. It's a reasonable concern. I apologize, I shouldn't have said that. It is a reasonable concern for the board. There is no objective basis that would bear that out. Absent environmental impact.
Mr. Otto, do you know of any other regulator stations that are near a vineyard?
I did not discover any.
You didn't discover any.
But I
don't have any data that says, regardless of whether there's vapors coming out, you can see it or not, there could be a market perception that a vineyard near a regulator might not be where I want to go. I'm asking a question. You don't have any data for any regulators near any vineyards.
Well, that data doesn't exist, and there would be no way to find it because that is literally looking for a teeny tiny needle in a very large haystack.
That's what we're dealing with.
I don't think you are, because I believe that this still boils down, this reduces to an environmental issue. Reduces to an environmental issue. And so let's think about it. The agricultural activity is producing wine. That wine is perhaps being sold on site. It may be sold elsewhere. And the question is whether the buyer of that end product, assuming the product is unchanged, assuming absent environmental impacts, the product that's inside of that bottle of wine tastes the same, smells the same, looks the same. Assuming that, what we're asking is it possible that somebody buying that wine wouldn't want to buy it because somewhere hundreds of feet away, there's this regulator station that you can't see, smell, or hear? I don't see the connection.
You know what? I have to jump in here because that's driving me nuts what you're saying.
The latter.
I don't believe one thing you're saying at all because the government has standards, but they change. Perfect example you could go to, it's not related to this, but think about Vietnam. They put Agent Orange all over the place. At that time, they didn't think it would harm the vets. Look what happens today. World Trade Center, people went there, first responders. Now everybody has cancer. So making that statement, and I wasn't here to question that environmentalist, to tell me that there's no effect or there's little effect right now or it meets government regulation is not acceptable to me. To me, it admits something, and 10 years from now, those grapes could have something on it, and it can destroy that whole business. So I don't accept that for one bit. If anything's coming out, even if it's microscopic, that to me is not acceptable. To be across the street from a vineyard. It needs to be in another location. So you making the statements about market value and making statements from what that expert said, I don't think should have any part of your testimony. in your analysis. And we heard many people, and I agree with many people what they said tonight. And it's just been upsetting me, and I've been quiet over here, but I've had it now up to this point. So that's my
Can I ask
feeling on
one
it.
question? Can I please just ask one question?
No, sir, you can't. Put your hand up.
I've been quiet all night.
No, sorry, you had your chance. Anyone else
Thank
on the
you.
board have any questions? No? Marion?
Just a request. I wonder if we can get a digital copy of the items marked into evidence for review. It was many meetings ago, and it would be helpful if I had them to look at.
Marion, I'm just gonna have to check to see if I can get it all digitally. I'll write a letter to the board secretary, whatever I can get. If there's an issue with having something, then I'll let you know.
Okay, so first, I just want to tell the members of the public, the meeting is to start at 8 o'clock. We moved it to 7 o'clock, not so we could go 4 hours instead of 3, but to try to wrap up sooner. So as an accommodation and to try to give everybody a chance, we stayed later tonight. We've been at public questions for almost 2.5 hours now. So just in case you don't realize, we started at 8:20. So while everyone may not have gotten as much opportunity as they would have liked, we did our best as a board to give everyone a chance. That is where we are for today. We are going to cancel our next meeting, and we're going to add a special meeting instead on, Loretta, you've gotten all the availability, and you're going to tell us the date for the special meeting?
The best date right now is Thursday, October 25th.
Yes.
Right before Thanksgiving.
October
17th, next week is canceled.
I need a motion to cancel that meeting.
Okay. All right, we'll do that afterwards. So we're going to have a special meeting on Thursday, October 25th. I would like the members of the public, 7 o'clock, and that one we're going to stay as long as it takes to wrap up, because it is my absolute goal to finish this application and vote that night. So you have one witness, you have a ballpark of how long without interruptions? It's planning testimony. I want to say to you that it's less than an hour. Okay. I don't know. I can't imagine it'd be longer than that. All right, so we're going to have one witness. You're going to come back with the other witnesses, other than Mr. Sanders and Mr. Otto, so that we can open up questions, and then I'll decide with the board how long we're going to give for public commentary, and then we're going to wrap it up and have a vote. So some of that will depend on how long the proceedings part take. Okay. Okay. So the 25th, no need to renotice. Correct.
25th or 26th? The 25th.
25th. 7 o'clock, Thursday, October 25th at 7 o'clock. It will be the continued gas application. That will be the only applicant that.
Got it.
I can't think of it.
Anyone have anything else? Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Can I have a motion to cancel the meeting?
Sure, I'll do that.
I'll second.
I'd like to make a motion to cancel the next regular meeting. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
While we're at it, now we have the 16th. Video on
We ready, girl?
We're gonna adjourn? This is adjourned? Is there a motion to adjourn?